No, Kenny, no. Listen, just a moment, Vic. I'm on the line with Kenny Omega right now. No, Kenny, no, listen, no, they're not going to forget about that fight you had with CM Punk. They're not going to no, they're not going to forget about it because you don't do anything wrestling wise that people give a crap about. You are the Young Bucks. I'm sorry. All right. We got to get off. We're Pro Wrestling Inside and Out is on, and we're going to stop talking. Can you believe this crap going on today? Forget about it when they don't care nothing about anything they're doing because they are not doing anything on that particular program. Am I wrong about this, guys?
I wouldn't know if you're right or wrong because I quit watching about a month and a half ago.
Well, yeah, I don't. I just watched bits and pieces of this show, and man, there is nothing there. Rodney, have you watched any of the AEW?
Where is that on at?
Well, I think it is actually on TNT, or is it TBS?
TNT or TBS? I don't know. I don't know.
TBS on Wednesday. Friday is Friday it doesn't matter because hardly anybody watches it all on Friday.
Ratings down to like 800,000 people. Are they ever going to grow? 3 years they've never grown. They've not grown one bit in 3 years. It's because of people like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks who believe they know professional wrestling, and CM Punk knows more about professional wrestling than they'll ever think about knowing, and and he doesn't know too much about it, but at least he knows more about them. But it makes no sense to me why Tony Khan wants to keep these guys around when they're part of the problem. Nobody's going to pay to see them or actually watch them for free. I wouldn't watch them for free if I'll be honest. I wouldn't even watch if they paid me. I just would say no. That's all right.
Well, it's according to how much they pay.
Well, that's correct, Brent. If they gave you $200 for you to sit through and just sit through it, you didn't have to do anything after that. You'd sit through that.
I might sleep through it, but I don't know that I would sit through it.
Well, I've been known to do that as well. Well, it's funny. It's funny how CM Punk is injured, as we know, but suspended at the same time. It just seems like it's a coincidence. He wouldn't be able to wrestle anyway, but he's suspended. Yeah, right.
I don't know what to think about All Elite Wrestling. It is there's no thought process put into anything about it, and until Tony Khan understands, it's about they'll never get nobody over as long as you have those guys because they will find some problem at all times. They will find some problem with some talent there because they want to be the stars, and when he really figures that out, he's going to be better off. That happened in the territory days as well. Owners of territories didn't like it because ex-wrestler was getting over, and they'd get rid of them too. So it's always been a thing. But that's one thing about WWE. At least the people who are in those positions are not on top, and in that thing that will take care of that completely. Jack, anything else going on in professional wrestling?
I have not even been reading news, but I will help everybody since we're on the cusp of Christmas.
Yes.
I will recommend Wahoo, great book about Chief Wahoo McDaniel, and of course, our very favorite book, The Wrestler's Wrestler. Both available on Amazon. Worth every penny. I think they're both in that $20 range. If you love yourself, buy one for Christmas. And if you love anybody else, buy a bunch of copies and give them away.
There you go. Rodney, anything going on in the world of professional wrestling except for AEW that we just spoke about?
Oh, well, I thought that was very interesting that before winning the AEW title, MJF came out and gave a full onslaught booty kissing on television for Tony Khan. I thought it was he wanted to thank Tony for the opportunity to be able to be seen on a national program because without Tony, he would not have been seen. He could not get to the other because he's quite honestly wasn't good enough to get to the other organization, of course, although he's been talking about it for the last 6 months. But then I thought that if this doesn't work out for MJF, he could probably do ventriloquism, because anybody that can lay one's lips on someone's rear end and talk at the same time with that is just brilliant. I have to admit. That was the classic example of basically when Tony just dropping his pants and letting him kiss him right on the rear end, just like Vince used to do. He did it full-fledged and for all to see. It's very sad. He's a very sad
Does that
man.
not lose what he left for, and probably what he got over for?
Well, it just shows you.
Didn't that just kill the whole gimmick off?
That would be correct, but the fact of the matter is that he'll be okay until they take the belt off of him, and then Tony will be mad again. Give him a belt, he'll be happy, and also work for free.
That'll be all right. Tony Khan will be champion soon. That way he can push himself.
Probably right.
Let's get right now to let's talk about Georgia Championship Wrestling. Now, we have talked about this. We're not for sure, and I'm not for sure actually if it's called Georgia Championship Wrestling at this point. But we're going for this. This is the lineage of Georgia Championship Wrestling that we know of from the 70s and the 80s into the 80s. So we're going to say, yes, this is Georgia Championship Wrestling. This is Paul Jones, Don McIntyre, the owners at this point of Georgia Wrestling. On our last video, we looked at 1935, 1947. We'll jump to 1948, and Jack, we'll let you pick it up on September 10th, 1948.
We're going to be at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Al Massey defeats Tom Mahoney. One night women's tournament semifinal match. June Byers defeats Teresa Theis, Theis, not the same as Lou Thesz. And also in the semifinal match, our favorite, Mae Young, defeats Juanita Kaufman. And in the tournament final, June Byers defeats Mae Young. Al Lovelock versus Don McIntyre to a draw. And Sky High Lee defeats Jim Cofield. Then we go to November 26, 1948. In Atlanta, Larry Mokeen defeats Joe Marsh. Al Lovelock versus Jack Kennedy to a time limit draw. Al Massey and Nick Carter defeat Jim Cofield and Tom Mahoney by disqualification. And the NWA World Heavyweight title, Lou Thesz defends against Don McIntyre.
Sam Majnik notified the NWA membership on December 22nd, 1949. This is a little story I want to tell you before we get to November 25th, 1949. And I want to tell this story. He notifies in 1949, Jones had contacted him saying that Billy Wolf, and we know who Billy Wolf is. If you've studied any wrestling, you know who he is. He booked the girl wrestlers, booked some girls for a fellow running opposition to him. Mujnik stated that he wrote Wolf about it. 2 days later, Mujnik followed up on this story with another bulletin claiming that Wolf had booked women to promoter Tommy Ward in Georgia for several years. And Mujnik said that as long as he does not run opposition to Paul Jones in Atlanta or any other town that Paul has been booking, Billy is entirely within his rights. I want you to remember this story because it's going to be a couple of years later that Paul Jones is going to make his comeback on Sam Mujnik and the National Wrestling Alliance, and we'll get to that on another video. All right, Jack.
November 25th, 1949, Tiny Oxford defeats Jim Kirkland by DQ. Nick Carter versus Ralph Garibaldi to a time limit draw. Al Massey defeated Gene Bowman. The NWA Georgia Southern Heavyweight title, Dan O'Connor defeated Don McIntyre. And in the NWA World Heavyweight title match, Lou Thesz defended against Hans Koffer.
You know, it's something that was going on by this time. The Dumont Network was fully in and going on, and they were on in Atlanta. I forget what channel it is. I will look that up and put that on here. But they were on by this time. So a lot of these wrestlers that we're going to look at, especially the Blimp, comes from that television program. I think it was called Wrestling for Amerigo or something in Chicago. Rodney, pick it up January 6, 1950.
All right, we're back at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. It's Earl Wampler and Bibber McCoy. They wrestled to a draw. I have to fix I have a scratch there. He said, my computer said McCoy. It's actually McCoy. The Blimp defeated Bibber McCoy in 8 minutes. It's Don McIntyre defeating Jim Caulfield in 21 minutes. It's Johnny Long and Nick Carter defeating Jack LaRue and Joe Marsh in 31 minutes. Note the following match between Johnny Long and Nick Carter and Jack LaRue and Joe Marsh. LaRue chased Long down the aisle and decked him when they were on stage, knocking him down the steps. It's funny. I just saw that exact same thing on Raw just last night. They spend more time out of the ring than they do actually in it. Okay, here we go. January 13th, 1950, back at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium is Jim Caulfield defeating Red McIntyre. It's Don McIntyre defeating Babe, I guess it's Babe Sharkey. Nick Carter, Bibber McCoy defeats Earl Wampler, and the Blimp by countout. Johnny Long defeats Jack LaRue by disqualification. Note, before the match between Don McIntyre and Babe Sharkey, police had to stop a brawl in the aisle when Jim Caulfield attacked McIntyre on his way to the ring. Bob Shipp was credited as being the referee on the card. Then we go back. Then we go to March the 31st, 1950, at a Municipal Auditorium. It's Jack LaRue versus Buddy Knox. Elvira Snodgrass against Ann Laverne. It is Don McIntyre versus Tony Mahoney, and Red McIntyre versus the Red Terror. The Southern Heavyweight title was on the line. It's Nick Carter defeat Rebel Russell to win the title. Note, aside from the match between Nick Carter and Rebel Russell, no documented results for those matches that was found. It's unclear how Rebel Russell came to be recognized as the Southern Heavyweight Champion. The last reference we have shows Ray Vilmer winning the title from George Flynn on December the 23rd, 1949 in Atlanta. Elmer Snodgrass managed Elvira Snodgrass.
Hey, have y'all ever? I will throw some photographs in there when I do some editing of this. Elmer actually was the manager for Elvira. Now that has not been done in wrestling to this day, has it? Really?
Well, we just saw Rhea Ripley with Dominic.
She manages. She's the manager.
Well, no, Dominic managed Rhea Ripley in that particular event.
Oh, I got you. Well, that's probably where he needs to be. So
yeah, that's right. Well, he was the valet. He was the valet in that.
Yeah, that would probably be where he needs to be. All right, Jack. Let's pick it up. June 23rd, 1950.
Red McIntyre versus Red Roberts. A lot of red in that match. Jim Caulfield versus Buddy Knox. Angelo Castoldi versus Bibber McCoy. Helen Hield versus Teresa Thez. Tarzan White versus Babe Zaharis. It was announced that Eddie Gossett would debut and the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Lou Thez would defend his title in Atlanta on July the 7th, 1950, and that Art Nelson would debut on the card on June 30th, 1950. July the 7th, 1950, Jim Caulfield and Buddy Knox wrestled to a draw. Nick Carter defeated Red Roberts. Tex Riley and Tarzan White wrestled to a draw. The Southern Heavyweight title match saw Art Nelson defeat Don McIntyre to win the title. The NWA World Heavyweight title match, Lou Thez retained against Bibber McCoy. Don McIntyre had been the reigning Southern Heavyweight champion since he defeated the Red Terror on May the 19th, 1950 in Atlanta. Howard Brown was credited as being the referee on this card. Although the National Wrestling Alliance was formed in 1948 and Paul Jones was reportedly at the first member meeting, Atlanta had continued to recognize the NWA World Heavyweight title as observed by the National Wrestling Association, as it had been doing since 1930. Alliance champion Orville Brown never made an appearance in the area during his reign, and this was the first by Lou Thez since he was awarded the Alliance version on November 27th, 1949, after Brown was forced to vacate the title due to injuries suffered in an automobile accident on November the 1st of 1949. It had been announced on June 23rd, 1950, that Eddie Gossett would debut on this card, but he was not mentioned. Now we go to July the 14th, 1950. Buddy Cox defeated Bob Shipp. Eddie Gossett defeated Red Roberts in 5 seconds. Tarzan White and Bever McCoy defeated Tom Mahoney and Angelo Custodi. Southern Heavyweight title match, Art Nelson defeated Nick Carter. Note, Bob Shipp substituted for Jim Cofield in the match with Buddy Knox. Paul Jones would later claim that the match between Eddie Gossett and Red Roberts was the shortest match ever in Atlanta history. Art Nelson had been the reigning Southern Heavyweight champion since he defeated Don McIntyre on July the 7th, 1950 in Atlanta. It was reported that Nelson was refusing to give McIntyre a rematch and that McIntyre was blaming himself because he should have made sure there was a rematch clause in their contract.
That'll get you every time.
Every
That'll get
time.
you every time.
It was announced that Beverly Leamer would wrestle Gene Holland and that Mae Young would wrestle Eva Lee on the card on July 28, 1950. It was also announced that Farmer Jones would wrestle in Atlanta soon.
And you got to remember at this time, Farmer Jones was seen on that Chicago wrestling show. So he would be a big star. Eddie Gossett would later become Eddie Graham. He must have been, they must have been trying to get him over beating people really fast. I wonder where they got that idea when Magnum TA was doing that. All right.
True.
August 4th, 19.
All right, we go back to Atlanta's Municipal Auditorium. It's Wallach Kowalski. I hope that's right. Defeating Tom Mahoney. Farmer Jones defeated Red Roberts. Mae Young and Beverly Leamer defeated Gene Holland and Ava Lee. The Southern Heavyweight Championship matches. Art Nelson defeated Eddie Gossett. Note that Art Nelson had been reigning as the Southern Heavyweight Champion since he defeated Don McIntyre on July the 7th, 1950 in Atlanta. Then we come back into Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Now, is these the full cards? Seem like they only have 4 matches for each one of these cards. Is that correct?
Yes,
so we have this man, Sky Lolo, one of my favorites, versus Pee Wee James. It's Chief Little Fox defeating Jack Britton. Don McIntyre and Phineas Hall wrestled to a draw. Nick Carter and Farmer Jones defeated Art Nelson and Jake Hader. October the 27th, 1950, Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Nick Carter defeated Lester Welch. Red McIntyre and Tarzan White defeated Art Nelson and Jack Hader. It's Man versus Animal. Ginger, the wrestling bear, versus Jack Steele. Phineas Hall defeated Eddie Gossett.
Lester Welch there because he was the one, I believe, with Ginger the Bear. Could have been someone else, but I believe he was. Jack Britton, I believe, was a boxing star at the time as well in the 1950s. Could be wrong about that, but I believe he was. All right, Jack.
November 3rd, 1950, Eddie Gossett and Tarzan White wrestled to a draw. Nick Carter and Phineas Hall wrestled to a draw. Don and Red McIntyre defeated Jack Steele and Jack Hader. Southern Heavyweight title match, no disqualification rules. Jack Kennedy defeated Art Nelson to win the title. Art Nelson had been the reigning champion since he defeated Don McIntyre again.
I believe that was July the 7th, 1950 that happened.
Strangler Lewis was the special referee for the match between Jack Kennedy and Art Nelson. November the 24th, 1950, a Friday night in Atlanta. In China it was a different night, but in Atlanta it's Friday. Red McIntyre defeated Red Roberts. Again, a lot of red. Nick Carter and Don McIntyre wrestled to a draw. Jack Steele and Tarzan White wrestled to a draw. Seems like the booker is just not doing his job. Gene Byers defeated Lillian Bitters. I guess she's bitter over the loss. Southern Heavyweight title match. Phineas Hall defeated Jack Kennedy to win the title. Jack Kennedy had been the reigning champion since he defeated Art Nelson in a previous post. December the 8th, 1950, Bob Orton defeated Jack Steele. Midget match or little people match, or whatever the political correct term is, we'll go with. Little Beaver defeated Irish Jackie. Don McIntyre and Farmer Jones defeated Tom Mahoney and Jack Britton. The Southern Heavyweight title match, Art Nelson defeated Finnis Hall to win back the title. I'm skipping that note about.
Yeah. Kind of redundant there, yes.
January 26th, Rodney, 1950.
Okay, we got Red Dugan defeating Honey Boy Hannigan. All right. Tarzan White defeating Nick Carter. Bob Orton defeated Bobby Lane by disqualifications. Farmer Jones defeating Jack Steele in the Southern Heavyweight Championship. It's the Golden Terror defeating Art Nelson to win the title. I'm not reading that either. February 15th, 1951.
By the way, this right here is not Georgia Championship Wrestling. This was not Paul Jones, Don McIntyre. This is the Outlaw group, basically, of the time.
Yeah, it's on a Thursday night. It's on a Thursday night at the Sports Arena. Johnny Long defeated the Terrible Turk. It's the Red Devil defeating Sam Roberts, Larry King. Wow. And Tiny Oxford wrestled to a draw. It's 20 minutes there. And it's Butcher Boy Martin defeating Creepy St. Cloud. And those are long matches. Johnny Long, 34 minutes, 18 minutes with the Red Devil. And wow, pretty long.
It's been a 2 out of 3 fall match because it says over to the top 2-0.
So we got so now we're back to Friday night's Atlanta Municipal Auditorium on February the 23rd, 1951. It's Tarzan White defeating Lester Welch, Nick Carter defeating Barbie Lane. It's man versus animal handicap match. It's Ginger the Wrestling Bear defeated Jack Steele and Bobby Lane. And in the main event, it was the Southern Heavyweight title. The Golden Terror defeats Bob Orton.
All right.
March the 30th, 1951, Friday night in Atlanta. Jack Curtis, the dad of Jack Curtis Jr., defeated Bobby Lane. Benny Becker and Bob Shipp wrestled to a draw. Nick Carter defeated Lou Plummer by disqualification. In the Southern Heavyweight title match, Don McIntyre defeated the Golden Terror to win the title. And May the 11th, Lou Plummer versus Kaware Annie.
Yeah,
we're just taking a stab. If Color's folks are out there, I apologize. Dan Connor versus Charlie Lay. And Argentina Rocca defeated Lorenzo Martinez. Aside from the match between Argentina Rocca and Martinez, no documented results for the remaining matches on this card have been found.
Hold on,
they were probably time limit drawn.
Now, the Golden Terror was unmasked the previous on the 30th, right? He said during the match, McIntyre removed the mask of the Golden Terror, and it was Danny Pletchis, and he was unmasked at that time. And people, after they pulled the mask off, all they said was who, and that was all there was.
Here's a couple of things. Jack Curtis. People will probably know Jack Curtis from Mid-South Wrestling. That's probably where you've heard the name. Also, Continental Wrestling Federation for a while. Jack Curtis, his father wrestled as well. Eventually, they would wrestle as a tag team. But that's Jack. And then Charlie Lay would also be a person, I believe, didn't they say that he was like the president of Mid-South Sports for a while?
Right. Sure was.
Charlie Lay. Argentina Rocca, huge star at the time, all for the television. He was a huge star. And I believe that Martinez may have been as well. I believe that whole match might have been from
the Mil Mascaras of his day.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. All right, Jack.
May the 18th, 1951, Charlie Lay versus Lou Plummer. Lorenzo Martinez versus Tarzan White. Man versus animal match, Joe Kirkland versus Ubum the Gorilla. I guess the bear wasn't available.
Hey,
Southern Heavyweight title match. Go ahead.
I got to ask this question before we move on. This gorilla. I could not find any kind of photographs. I could not find anything about this. Was this a person? If anybody knows, please leave a comment. Does anybody know if this gorilla actually exists, or was this a person in a whole outfit? Because I'm gathering there was not a gorilla actually wrestling. I mean, we talk about bears, but I don't think there was a gorilla they allowed to get in the ring with a person. Maybe so. All right, I just.
Southern Heavyweight title match, Don McIntyre versus Dan Connor. There are no documented results from this card.
All right, Rodney.
Right, July the 28th, 1951. It's Saturday nights at the Municipal Auditorium in Atlanta. It's Al Massey versus Jack Moore. Mike, there's a good one. Pediosis. I'm going to say that's, I think, close enough. Versus Ben Morgan. It's a Southern Heavyweight title match. Art Nelson defeating Don McIntyre to win the title. It's Baron Leon versus the Great Scott. And you know why they call him that? Every time he did anything, the announcer went, Great Scott!
Baron Leon was a huge star also off of that Chicago television. Yeah. So,
what about the Great Scott?
I don't know about the Great Scott. I couldn't find any information about the Great Scott because I believe at some point didn't Scott? Oh man, now y'all. Never mind. Go ahead. I'll think about that later on. I can't.
August the 3rd, 1951.
Right now,
it's Ben Morgan versus Nick Carter. Mike Piatas, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that name, versus Al Massey. Farmer Jones versus Phineas Hall in the Southern Heavyweight Championship. Don McIntyre defeated Art Nelson and to win back the title. And then, of course, on Friday, August the 10th, back at Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, Ben Morgan versus Maurice Robert. Al Massey and Farmer Jones versus Tom Mahoney and Phineas Hall. And the main event was the Southern Heavyweight Championship. That title goes back and forth. Art Nelson defeating Don McIntyre.
Don McIntyre, still the star in Atlanta, Georgia. He is the man there. The Great Scots is what I was talking about, George and Sandy Scott.
You might be right.
I'm not for sure 1950s they were around, but I believe it could be either George or Sandy Scott. I'm not for sure, though. All right, Jack.
September 7th, 1951, Eddie Gossett and Phineas Hall wrestled to a draw. Jack Steele and Gorgeous Gilpin wrestled to a draw. Chief Little Wolf, number 2, defeated Ben Morgan. The Southern Heavyweight title match, Art Nelson defeated Al Massey. November 16th, Sheikh Ben Ali defeated Bob Shipp. Babe Zaharis defeated Howard Kentenwine. Art Nelson defeated Don McIntyre. Gorgeous George defeated Al Massey. Gorgeous George was escorted to the ring by his valet, Jeffrey. February 22nd, Nick Carter and Sonny Kurgis wrestled to a draw. Don McIntyre and Mike Payadosis defeated Lou Newman and Jack Dillon. The Mighty Atlas defeated Lou Plummer.
Gorgeous George goes to their big star, and unlike the World Heavyweight Champion for years, actually defeated someone because he was a big star and defeated one of their stars. And unheard of by the time the 80s come along. All right, Rodney Little.
Now I have a question. Here. September 7th card. Chief Little Wolf number 2. Okay, so is there an explanation to this? Apparently there's a 1 and there's a number 2.
Number 1 wasn't available. Number 3 had the flip.
I was just wondering.
Gorilla. I could not find any reason why there were 2 Chief Little Wolves. I don't know why. I could not find any information. I wanted to find a photograph of the gorilla so badly, but I could not find nothing of that. I looked, couldn't find nothing, and I couldn't find nothing about Chief Little. I found a Chief Little Wolf, but I didn't find 2 Chief Little Wolves, so I don't know.
All right, then. Okay.
Any other names, and they just called somebody else that.
We're down to 3 matches now at the Municipal Auditorium on March the 7th, 1952. Is Matt Padosis, I believe that's correct, defeated Lou Plummer. Lou Newman defeated Sonny Kurgis, and Paul Jones and Don McIntyre defeated Nick Carter and Jack Dillon. Coming up on March the 28th, 1952, back at Municipal Auditorium, as Jack Dillon and Sonny Kurgis wrestled to a draw. Jack McDonald defeated Mike Podosis. And then it says for the Southern Heavyweight title, Lou Newman defeated Don McIntyre.
You think Paul Jones came out of retirement or something for that match? I mean, was it a big deal? They do something. I mean, there was no television. They didn't have local television, so it had to be something they did on the show prior to it. I mean, how would they explain Paul Jones coming back? Well, I don't know. We don't have the March whatever 1st or whatever it is, but
yeah, we don't have the other matches. So yeah,
well, that's Georgia Championship Wrestling, 1952. Next time we'll go from 1952 to about 1956. We'll go all the way to 1956, and we'll tell you more about stuff that happened during that point in time on Georgia Championship Wrestling. Rodney, do you think we need to go see what the insiders got to say?
But of course, we've missed them over the last 2 weeks.
Yes, let's see what Mickey Mayfield. That was Dusty's.
That's possible. You're right.
Let's see. Carl, hello from the Mid-South. You probably know Jack Curtis from the Charlie Lay. That was what was he there? The president of the Mid-South Sports?
He was the president of Mid-South Sports. That is correct.
Kevin Penley said, good evening, gentlemen, and Rodney.
Somebody's trying to start something. I'm trying to be nice through the holidays.
Hey, we already made 2 or 3 people mad on our
gift.
Listen, folks. We told you if you were going to be a subscriber on our network, on our fact that it ain't the same show. And we just peed off about
it was his first night. His first night as a subscriber, and we got I mean, I'd like to collar him up and knock the damn it right out of his mouth, but that wasn't the word he said.
Got very mad at us, got very upset at us. And the thing we tell people, it's not your grandmother's show. We tell our exact feelings on there that we wouldn't do on here. And
I hide them a lot here on this particular program.
We are not crass about this. You guys ain't tuning in and seeing different personalities. We're the same as we are here. There's just things that we don't normally talk about.
Yeah, and we're having some difficulties with that because Facebook changes on a daily basis. Everything changes on a daily basis. We never can stick with one thing because Facebook does not want to. They'll change something. The next thing you know, we have to change with them, and it's nothing we can do about that. Charles Bellflower now entering the screen from Athens, Georgia. He is with us. Let's see. Hello, everyone, from Jason Mundy. Donnie Hester is with us as all. Glenn Allen Shelton said, hello, all safe. I'll stay safe tonight. Yeah, it was storming just while we were doing the. Jeff Dobbs is with us as well. Jeff, good evening, gentlemen. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I think we all I think we did. Rick Brooks is with us as well. Hi, guys, and everyone. Kevin Penley said, I'm watching a documentary on Central States. Bob Geigel said they bought out Sam Muchnick. Okay, then at the time, who had control of the National Wrestling? I think Jim Crockett did, didn't he? By that time?
If it's when they originally, Bob Geigel said he bought out Sam Muchnick, that was way back.
Yeah, that was probably in the...
That was probably, and I would say then that would be Sam... well, at that point afterwards, who is, I guess he's...
Bob Geigel becomes the president of the National Wrestling Alliance, right?
At one time, you see, I'm not quite sure. What year do you remember, Kevin, when they were talking about that? Maybe we can look it up at that point, because at one time Eddie Graham was also the president of the National Wrestling, but I don't know. I don't really know where that's at.
Jack Dillon. Hello, guys. Hey, Jack. Hey, there was a Jack Dillon wrestling one.
Yeah, I was wondering.
He's one of the top guys. Don McIntyre is the top guy in Atlanta at this point. I mean, he is the man. Plus 50% owner of the company. So.
Yeah, he had bought in the early 50s.
Kevin Penley, who in wrestling was Mike Stallings related to? Jerry Stubbs?
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Stubbs. Yeah. Let's see. I think his cousin, right?
Yes.
Mickey Mayfield, Tommy Rich, Kevin Sullivan, Buzz Sawyer all started at Georgia Championship Wrestling at the same time. Tommy Rich started in 1978, didn't he?
He was there he actually got there in 77.
So
he was first there. Yeah, because he was, I remember one of my favorite nights at the Rome Memorial Gym when Tommy kept calling Stan Hansen to come back to the ring, and Stan did, and repeatedly beat him into a pulp. And I enjoyed every moment of that.
Tommy, Kevin Sullivan came to Atlanta. Kevin Sullivan was in Atlanta in 1974, I believe, 75. And then he came back in 1978, I believe.
Right.
Him in 1979 to work against the Koloff and Smirnoff. Buzz Sawyer got there in 1980, didn't he? 81, somewhere around there.
Buzz was there before because he worked in the Southeastern, right?
1979, that's right. He was that boring babyface that he was doing.
Yeah. From even at that point, though, he had such great skills. Let's be honest. One of the best drop kicks you can see, Buzz Sawyer.
But Tommy got the big push. Do you think the other two got? No, I don't think so. No. There wasn't jealousy like that back then. You know, it really wasn't, because you knew Tommy was going to get. Tommy was over. I mean, by the time he got there, when him and Rick Martel were a tag team, jeez, they were over. I mean, they were over. And I don't think that Ole Anderson liked it very much because it wasn't his guy. Tommy Rich was brought in by Jim Barnett, so Ole had to push Tommy Rich. It was not that he wanted to; he was just told to.
Tommy wasn't automatically pushed. He was partnered with several wrestlers. I mean, with Thunderbolt Patterson, Tony Atlas wrestling too. I mean, Dusty. It wasn't a Stan Hansen. It wasn't that he was just thrown and was on top at first. No, not at all.
Yeah, Tommy was tremendous at that point in time.
Tommy was the Ricky Morton of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, he really was. And was tremendously talented. Was able to get sympathy to the fans. And when he finally made that tag, people went nuts.
Yeah, it was tremendous. Paul asked the question, I think. Good evening, gentlemen. Did any of you see Ricky Steamboat's match?
No, I did not.
I see bits and pieces of it and was very impressed with Ricky Steamboat. Hey,
oh yeah, when you do an arm drag in the play, say that again, Brett. Say that again.
Player, watch that. That's what a guy that in that position, Ricky Steamboat.
Well, I thought it was amazing. He did a arm drag and the place went nuts. So,
those were apparently fans who actually appreciated professional wrestling.
Yes. I did see bits and pieces of it on YouTube, and I wanted to see that. I wanted to see Ricky. I always liked Ricky Steamboat. Nice guy, great wrestler, knew what he was doing inside the ring. Richard Hood is running a little late. Jack, could you go ahead and get in touch with him? $50 fine for Richard Hood since he's running late. Charles Bellflower answered the question, Jerry Stubbs. Yeah. You can't get nothing by Charles.
Charles knows his stuff. Tell you right now.
Doug Masters, hello, gentlemen. I love your show. Thank you so much, Doug. We certainly do appreciate it. We do the Georgia Championship Wrestling, and some people they message me and say, "Who cares about the 1950s?" But listen, you need to know your history of wrestling. You didn't get to Tommy Rich before Don McIntyre. You didn't get to Tommy Rich before Ray Gunkel. You didn't get to Tommy Rich before Wrestling 2 and Wrestling 1. You didn't get to any of those. So you need to know your history.
And it's exactly what you're saying. It basically, that torch was passed from one to the next to the next. It was continuous. They did not start from day one in most cases. It was passed from place to place.
Bishop, Michael Nesby. I don't like the MJF title run, but I love the William Regal heel turn. Yes, I thought that was very well done. Very well done. You got to watch doing that too much, though, because if you turn people too many times, it will kill them off. So people will never don't ever turn William Regal ever again because they're not going to trust him.
I don't know if anybody saw this, but on the WWE.com website, they honored William Regal Saturday before War Games because since they brought War Games back to the NXT, William Regal was always the one who came out and did the introduction of "Let the War Games begin." I won't even try to emulate the way he says it, but it is iconic. And Triple H made the statement of, it's just not the same without him being here to do this.
Yeah, he will eventually be back. So,
yeah, I think he's got a 3-year deal. So he's about 6-8 months into the first year. But you know he'll be back.
If he gets over at all, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks will make sure he's gone. So it'll be fine. Richard Hood just checked in.
Oh, there's Richard.
Go ahead. He's around, Jack. You can go ahead and send that. You can send that slip down for the $50 fine. And did the original Gorgeous Georgia wrestle in Atlanta? Yes, we just said he wrestled in Atlanta on that particular date, and he actually won the match. And he should have won the match.
Yeah. Not sure if that's his first appearance or not, but
yeah,
he obviously was there.
Yeah, because he was a huge star. He just took somebody's gimmick and did it better than they did. I mean, that's just basically, it wasn't original. He just took it from some other guy and said, hey, I can do this better than this guy can. And did. Vern Gagne and Jim Barnett played a part in the wrestling on the Dumont Network. I know that Jim Barnett did. I don't know that, or I didn't hear about Vern Gagne, but I did know that Jim Barnett had something to do with it. Jelena Peck. Hey, Jack. Hello, Jack. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Kevin Penley, during the split in Atlanta, were both promotions sponsored by the National Wrestling? No, the only one that was.
Yeah, we have one of the other shows we did about the war. It had the NWA logo, but they had changed it, right, in some way. They had altered it.
Yeah, I have it somewhere. I have it actually at the program somewhere.
Is it GWA?
And that was All Star Wrestling Alliance. So it was AS.
That's right. So they had altered the logo of the NWA just slightly to put the new letters in it. What it looked like.
Yeah,
it was a program.
Yeah, it was on the program.
It's a program, is what we saw that on.
I bet they stopped that very quickly.
Oh, I bet you they did. I bet you they did too.
Old Vinny probably showed up and said, "Don't think you're going to be able to do that again."
It was, if I'm not mistaken, National Wrestling Alliance was trademarked, so they probably did them, even just slightly changing the logo like that. Probably did them. Got them a nice little letter from the lawyers.
Kevin Penley. Oh, and lastly, why was the Poffos banned from the National Wrestling Alliance? Because they ran opposition to so many people. I don't. What's he talking about the Mobile?
I don't know. We'll have to have Kevin to enlighten us on the Mobile incident.
I don't know though. That I think they just wanted to run their own wrestling company, and you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can do it and they make money, I mean, that's because let's be honest, promoters at that time made money. Today, the wrestlers make money, the promoter don't make it money. It's kind of flip flop there for some reason, but I don't know. Jack, you know anything about a Mobile incident?
Do not.
I don't either.
But if they had a all-night eatery, I'm sure Randy beat somebody up.
Replying to Kevin, NWA was trying to put Gungo out of business. Well, I mean, they didn't want her to be in business.
That's right.
I think they did her wrong. I mean, I'm sorry, but she did own Ray Gunkel's portion of the company. They shouldn't try to push her out. That was wrong. No matter what people want to say, that was just the wrong way to do it. And that was the Welches, and that was Paul Jones. And I don't even know if it was much as Paul Jones. I think it was just other people just didn't want her around. What kind of a farmer was Farmer Jones? Beef, cattle, or cash crops? All of the above there, Paul.
All farmer.
They were also a Farmer Burns, wasn't they?
Mm-hmm. Sure was. Turn of the century. He was world champion.
When Rodney was a ring announcer, did he ever have the urge to do a dive off the top rope just to get his stuff in?
No, I like to do the right before the match. Says I like to run and jump up underneath the ropes. That was my deal.
To
Especially
be
when the action
fair,
started.
I did see Ron West more than a time or two come running out and jump over the top rope to stop a horrible match.
That's true.
You know, I know I've done a lot of stuff when I was doing ring announcing. I was in Knoxville, Tennessee once, and I did not mean to get the pop that I ended up getting, but I had done the first match, ring announced it, done the whole thing, got the whole thing started, walked down the steps, and they had forgot to put the chain around the steps. And the step flipped up. I went in the floor. Everything that was in my pocket went everywhere. The people went nuts when I took the bump off the thing. And I actually did hurt myself. I did not expect that. And you know what Richard White said to me? He walks over, helps me up, and says, "Oh, I forgot to put the chain on that." I looked up at him and says, "Well, don't you say." Can you imagine if it would have been somebody else that walked down there? They'd probably beat the crap out of him for not putting that chain around him.
You sold it the entire night, didn't you?
I did. I sold that thing. And somebody on the fifth row, I had one of them. You remember them cross pins? You remember those cross pins? I actually came back and gave that back to me and said, "You might need this." Let's see. We have a wrestling panda here. The Pal Panda, Vinny, whatever, and a panda.
So, yeah. The Panda Mask.
Have y'all seen this guy?
I have. It's been a while, but I think I have seen pictures of that.
Fitting in the current year's discussion, WPXI radio started broadcasting the matches live. Was that in the 1950s? Charles, was that during this 1950s?
I think that's what he's saying in those current years that we're discussing. Yeah, that's.
There was no television yet, to my knowledge. There was a television before the Dumont television program. It only lasted a month because they had problems getting it to go live and doing it right. But and I don't remember who it was that because didn't Fred Kohler, Koher, wasn't he the promoter in Chicago? Did Eddie Gossip eventually become who we know as Eddie Graham? Yes, he was. I believe he was from Chattanooga, Tennessee, wasn't he? The Danny you had on there was officiating for Frizz in World Class Championship Wrestling and close to Gary Hart. Wow. Christopher Hughes, evening, guys. Hope all is well. Michael Barr is with us. Michael, how are you doing? Let's see. So you're saying you won't be talking about Tony Atlas paying women to walk on him here? No, not on here, but on the other one. But there'll be somebody get mad. I can't believe you talked about Tony Atlas.
Mickey, do you have a story about Tony Atlas paying women to walk on?
Tony Atlas tells a story, and I can say this because it's all over the internet. Tony Atlas tells the story that the Junkyard Dog told him to go ahead and instead of paying women, make them pay you. That's what he said. And then Tony Atlas told that story, and he loved feet, and that was just the whole thing. I'll watch it's all over the internet. I'm not making the stories up. The stories there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right then. Well,
we
making extra money on the side.
Yeah, we will not be talking about the Jimmy Valiant deal after that.
You mean you have a bedside manner here, Jack, and Rodney has none on the subscriber show. But Jeff, I mean, I thought everybody was going to have it. I thought their brains was going to explode when we were just telling our opinions. We don't really tell we tell what's going on. We don't really tell our major, not like we do on that show. But that's going to have to come to an end because Facebook's changed. So, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. Eddie Dale, hey guys, probably had a chance to get back. Eddie Dale, good to see you. The documentary is on YouTube.
Okay, he's talking about the one that what he was talking about earlier about when the Central States switched from where Bob Geigel bought out Sam mentioned.
Bob was a very boring person when you would talk to him. Very boring. I remember when he told us we couldn't sell stuff. It took him a good 10 minutes to tell us the story. And I was thinking, why did they ever put him on television?
Is it because of what he said to you to keep us from selling stuff, or was it because you thought he was actually boring?
Yeah, I thought he was boring. I didn't want to hear that again, so I didn't want to come back. I didn't really care at that point. Please, Bob.
Fred, I would like to tell you that you certainly take this opportunity to come to you, and I thought I could do it to you just personally and not behind the scenes. I wanted to be upfront with you. You can't sell that here. Okay, you just can't.
And then I said, well, Jim Crockett. Well, now listen, Jim Crockett does not own this company. I'll never forget that story. 10 minutes I got to hear of that. I just stayed at home most of the time. So I did go to some of it, but it snowed the whole time we were there. I could not stand that. That we were used to not snowing. So it was not a great experience for us. I recall my dad mentioning some of the wrestlers you named, the Great Scott and Baron Leon. And I am going to go back and edit this together, and I'm going to put photographs and stuff and videos of these guys wrestling. I'm just going to piece that all together with with the information. Let's see. You West brothers have a great memory. We're the same age. In the late 70s, I was still wrestling in my sandbox, not a wrestling scholar yet. Growing up in the wrestling business, and our father, he was from the time we were, he started in 1962. But the time, though, when in the 1970s, 1974, he was already in the office. He was already the assistant booker, and it was the right-hand man to Jim Barnett. So we know a lot about Georgia because he was the one helping make the decisions at that point until Jim Barnett was gone and Ole Anderson took over and he fired him. I mean, it just and because it wasn't his guy. I think that's what it comes right down to. I think so. Michael Barr. Well, I was hitting something. It didn't work. All right, there we go. I could hear Tommy Rich behind the microphone. Got something to tell you. Oh, Tommy Rich. He was great until he started saying that little saying he said. Somebody say something about, man. I remember telling him back, and I'm telling him, man, could you quit saying that? Man, that just gets old. It's like a chalkboard on the side of a thing. And he didn't remember, but we won't get it. I didn't remember. Ricky can still it better than 75% of all the wrestlers today. In my opinion, he is second only to Harley Race as the best ever. Christopher Hughes. Eddie Graham was president in 1976 through 78. Bob Geigel and Jim Crockett alternate terms for the next 10 years. Condolences to Mickey James. I did not hear this. She lost her brother in a car accident. This was on the Facebook earlier. Yes, condolence to her. I don't get on Facebook too much anymore because they change it so drastically. I never can figure out how to use it. I mean, do you think they could keep something and keep it the same? But man, they're bad about changing things. And I don't have a Twitter account, so Elon Musk does not get anything from me because I'm not on there. Fine, me. Well, I am. Hey, Michael Barr was late too. Jack, get his name. Get a $50 fine for him as well. Let's see. Well, I am having some difficulties right now. Let's see. Charles Hughes said the Poffels ran opposition to Jarrett, and eventually sold out Tim Ryan. I don't think they sold anything to the. Did they?
No,
I think they just went out.
no, and they just threw up the white flag and asked to come in, and Jerry, being a businessman, knew they would draw.
Yeah, and they did.
Yep.
And not for a long period of time again, because I think they eventually turn on babyface, don't they?
I want to say yes, but I don't remember for sure.
1949 to 1953, I think, was the years of the Channel
Radio
11.
show.
Channel 11 TV started and coverage in 1954 because I believe by then, I'm not for sure, but the DuMont network had a horrible time getting things together. I mean, they really did. They went bankrupt sometime around this time, maybe in 1956. I think the wrestling might have been over by then. So they needed some way. And I think by that time, Paul Jones, Don McIntyre, and all promoters realized that when they brought in these guys from this television, they were drawing big money. So they knew they needed something in some way to bring these guys in, because he was bringing a lot of those guys from that TV show. Christopher Hughes, that would be freaking awesome to be able to listen to matches on the radio, just like baseball. Always loved it better on the radio because they explained it really good. I mean,
that was the medium that majority of people only had access to. I remember my dad talking about, sitting around listening to the Lone Ranger episodes and stuff like that on radio, and how exciting that was, because it wasn't a visual medium, so you had to use your mind to imagine all these things, and wrestling would have been no different.
Yeah. Michael Barr asked this question, Jack. He said, do you think I can get by without the $50 fine? Thanksgiving broke me. I will do community service or set up the road.
We'll see.
I'll tell you who was boring. Johnny Weaver was like watching a mud puddle. Hey, didn't he every time that someone would get beat on there, didn't he always sing? I'm going to sing a song almost every time, like something is over. Johnny Weaver. Because didn't he do commentary for Jim Crockett?
He did. Yes, he did.
I didn't think he was too bad then. But I heard of his interviews. Man, whoo. No excitement whatsoever. Fellas, what can I do to work off the fine? Richard Hood's going to have to work off the fine. Well, now he'll put up the wrestling ring. So, maybe the timekeeper or something. Or just wrestle for free. Promoters love that. The Head Over Heels that thing on the history of Wrestling the Chase is really great. If you have about an hour to check it out, I think I am going to. I like to.
I did watch that here not too long ago, and that is an excellent documentary. My friend Darla is part of that, and she does an excellent job.
Oh, the Poffos were fired in the Gulf Coast for doing a Mario Galante type thing, attacking wrestlers legit. It's hard for me to believe that. Maybe Angelo, maybe Randy, but Lanny don't seem like the type of guy that's going to do that, does he? He just doesn't. I can see him sitting in the car, and they were saying, now tonight, this is what we're going to do. And I can see Lanny going, I just don't know about that.
I was too busy writing poetry.
Yes. Let me write the poem. I don't want to get in there.
I'll document it. I'll scribe it for you.
Now, Randy might have said, oh, yeah. He's probably in for the good old fight. But I wonder what wrestlers they attacked. What wrestlers did they attack? I need to know this.
And whose eyeballs did they get pulled out, or what happened?
Richard and myself, will worker finds out, give us a job of some sort. Richard Hood, Michael Barn are in trouble with the fines. Yes, you are in trouble.
Hey, I tell you what you guys could do. In fact, everybody listening could do is go to our page, and on the share option, go in there and select all your friends and send requests out to all your friends and help us build.
Yeah. And let's see, Tony Richards. Hey, Tony got mad at us last time. No. Tony did. ICWA ran from 1979 to 1984. They shut the doors when Angelo, Randy, and Larry went. I did not understand. They were there that long? 1979 to 1984?
It ran for a long time. Sure did. And they partnered up with, they were in on the thing in Knoxville as well.
I'm very, you got to be impressed with that. They said
their main town was Lexington, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Paul, you're right. That's right. Turn the lights. The party is over. He would sing that every time somebody would. Just watch it. Watch show tapes. He'll sing for you at the end of the. That's good. Let's see. Michael Barr, Donnie Hester, and I, 6-man a tag team. Jeff, commentary on AEW is the new fun for me.
That's true. Yes. Woo-wee.
I'll be honest with you. I like Jim Ross, but man, he doesn't do a tremendous job as well these days.
I don't think his heart's in it.
I think he's just money. I think it's money.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're right. I'll just hit something, and then maybe that'll come up. For your information, Jim Crockett, Mid-Atlantic on TOT tonight. What's that, TOT?
Tales of the Territories.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to talk about them today.
They had, I think Portland was on, I think it was last week.
Last week, yeah.
Yeah.
Week before was Hawaii. I watched all of those that I've missed, 2 or 3 of them today, and they're really good. Even Lars Anderson doesn't make a what of himself.
George Lambert said, "Been masters for those people who know him has been better." Until I watched these episodes of Tales from the Territories, I never realized so many eyeballs were pulled out over the years.
Yeah.
Hey, Junkyard Dog did that to Lex Luger. So, not a good sight. Sugar Bear, Donnie Hester. And we'll do one more, and then we'll have to get off of here because we got to go over there and do our somebody's probably going to be mad. Somebody will. But watching AEW commentary is like watching 4 men in a man cave doing commentary. And Jeff said every match in AEW ends with all the wrestlers coming out into the ring for a free fall. Booking just that's it. One thing we're going to discuss on our supporter channel. There's no way to get to it if you're not a supporter now. There's no way to get to it now. You just waited too late because we were. That's just not available anymore. But you people that are part of it, come on over there because this is what we're going to talk about. What is actually? I think some people don't understand what old school wrestling is. I think they have this preconceived notion of that. Me and Roddy talked about the other day of what old school wrestling is and what it was, and like AEW, if they want to produce because they shouldn't be producing WWE, they should be producing something for themselves. So we'll talk about that. We're going to do that in just a moment, right here on this end. Jack, anything you need to talk about before we leave?
No, I think we got it covered.
Rodney, anything?
Austin Theory is the new U.S. champion, and he made a comment that he's changing things. He's no longer going to be a goofball, and then he turns around and he's a goofball last night on Raw, talking about all the things he said he wasn't going to talk about anymore. He ended up talking about it anyway. Well,
that makes a liar out of him, and he will not get over anymore. And WWE writers, that is not good.
Here's the one other thing, Paul. I got you. We were talking about after every match ends up in a brawl. If you watched Raw last night, it doesn't matter who comes to the ring with the microphone. You can be guaranteed somebody is going to interrupt them and come out. Every single time. Never fails. And you want to talk about ending up in people fighting everywhere. Apparently, you didn't watch Raw last night because that happened over and over again.
That's when you don't know how to book and you don't know what finishes are. There is a thing
they had an anything goes match. I couldn't tell the difference between the anything goes match and the other matches they had.
With that, we're going to go over there and talk about wrestling over there on the other channel. Thank you so much for being a part of Pro Wrestling Inside Now. 600 people this week new to our Facebook page. Thank you so much. Keep on sharing. We had a picture of Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, and Bret Hart, I believe. Did I say Bret Hart twice?
Yeah.
All right. We had a picture of them. It has been shared at this point in time 12,000 times, and we appreciate you sharing that with everybody. And over 600 comments, I believe, now about that photograph. So thank you so much. And YouTube, make sure you get over YouTube, because in time, everything that we do on here will move to YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, it will have to move to YouTube based on some changes. And
not our choice.
you have to do what you have to do. So we're going to move over to a YouTube. But hey, YouTube's easy to do, free. Just sign up. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. What we're going to talk about, I don't know, because I do not have Georgia Championship Wrestling number 4 done yet. It always takes me about 2 weeks to be able to do it. Thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.